Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at. This is Dr. Diane Sanchez, and we will be going over the skills approach, which is chapter 3 of your book. The overview is we're going to talk about the skills approach perspective, the 3-skill approach that Katz developed in 1955, the skill-based model, which Mumford et al. Developed in 2000, and how does the skills approach work? So, what is the skills approach definition? Well, or description, it is leader-centered perspective, which we shift our thinking from a focus on personality characteristics, which are usually described as being innate, and we emphasize skills and abilities that can be learned. So this is where it took a big shift in theories. It emphasizes, again, skills and abilities that can be learned and developed. So remember, that was very different than the trait theory. The definition is leadership skills, the ability to use one's knowledge and competencies to accomplish a set of goals and objectives. So we're going to talk about the 3-skill approach that Katz developed in 1955. And it's very interesting. It focuses on technical skills, human skills, and conceptual skills. So technical skills would be proficient in a certain type of work or activity. For example, if you're a computer, in the computer industry, it would be computer skills. If you're in the accounting industry, it would be having a very high understanding of accounting principles. So it's really understanding the technical skill or work in your area. The human skills are people skills. It is understanding. Does the leader have an understanding of human skills that assists group members in working together and achieving a common goal? And that the leader can create an atmosphere of trust where employees feel comfortable and secure so that they are encouraged to give their ideas and plan things that can affect them. So being a leader in the human skills means being sensitive to the needs and motivates others and taking into account others' needs in one's decisions. Conceptual skills are things that a leader will be comfortable talking about, ideas that shape organizations and the intricacies involved. Some people would say conceptual skills are strategic skills. He or she is good at putting the company's goals into words or their vision and can understand and express the economic principles that affect the company. So the conceptual skills works easily with abstractions and hypothetical notions. Again, it's these leaders that can put a vision together and really put a picture out there for their employees about what the direction of the company is going. This is a very interesting chart, and I use this a lot when I talk about management. So let's read it from the bottom to the top, and you can see it's management skills necessary as various levels of the organization. So it takes Katz 3 skills right? Technical, human, and conceptual. And it puts how much you need to know by level. So leaders need all three, but the importance ranges or changes based on the level of the management. So if you take the supervisory management, it's very important for them to have high technical skills, right? So they are managing people who may have high technical skills. So it's important that they know those skills really well so that they can base their performance expectations on those technical individuals. They also have to have a high human skill, which is they're managing people, frontline folks. And they don't need as much conceptual skills, strategy, economics, those kinds of skills, because they're at the lower level. If you see middle management, that's when you start having to really understand and get a grasp for those conceptual skills. And at the top management, your directors and vice presidents, they don't need so much the technical skills because they're getting it through their hierarchy, but they do need to know human skills and conceptual skills. As you can see here, the common denominator for all three levels of management is the human skills, and that is important and need to be fully functioning in all those three levels of management. So I've talked about technical skills, being proficient in a work activity. They can be specialized competencies, analytic abilities, hands-on ability with a product or a process, and it's the most important at the lower level. The human skills, as I've stated, being aware of one's own perspective and others, assisting group members in working together to achieve common goals, and creating an atmosphere of trust and empowering members. And this is important in all levels of the organization. Conceptual, again, works easily with abstraction and hypothetical notions, creating and articulating a vision and strategic plan, and most important at the management levels. So let's go and move on to the skills-based model. And it's a model based obviously on skills necessary, but it adds a list of competencies that individuals need to have. It goes through individual attributes, it goes through competencies and leadership outcomes. So the researcher's main goal was to explain the underlying elements of what is effective performance for a particular leader. So their questions in their research was, what accounts for why some leaders are good problem solvers and others are not? What specific skills do high performing leaders exhibit? How do leaders' individual characteristics, career experiences, and environmental influences affect their job performance? And as a whole, the researchers wanted to identify the leadership factors that created outstanding job performance in an actual organization. And we will go through each of these individually. So the skills model was developed in 2000 by Mumford, Zaccaro, Harding, Jacobs, and Fleishman. The research studies were started in the 1990s, but their goal was to identify, as I said, the leadership factors that created outstanding or exemplary job performance in an organization, and emphasize the capabilities that make effective leadership possible. rather than what leaders do. So it's expanding the model to include the capabilities that make effective leadership possible. And so the model of leadership is the capability model. It examines relationships between a leader's knowledge, skills, and abilities and the leader's performance. So this was the first time it was suggested that many people have the potential for leadership, which is quite a shift from the traits theory. We've covered individual attributes, competencies, and as I spoke about, these were the 9 problem solving skills, which I went over, and the book does as well. Box in leadership outcomes of the skills model of leadership. Now, what does career experiences have to do with it? Well, career experiences, think about it in your own experience. How did your leadership develop? What kind of experiences did you have in challenging assignments, mentoring, appropriate training, hands-on experience with something that you didn't know? Right? The authors thought that career experiences could positively affect the individual characteristics of a leader. For example, certain on-the-job assignments could enhance a leader's motivation or intellectual ability. So think about this in your own career. I think most of you believe or think you are leaders, and you probably are. And so what the theorists posit is these things help develop a leader's characteristics. So basically they say leaders are shaped by their experiences, and it meant that leaders were not born. So this is a question in your mind. Do you believe that leaders are born, or do you think that their experiences have shaped them into leaders? So it's experience gained during career influences leaders' knowledge and skills to complex problems, and leaders learn and develop higher levels of conceptual capacity if they progressively confront more complex and long-term problems as they ascend in the organizational hierarchy. So your experiences as a supervisor is different than your experiences as a manager, is different than in experiences in directorship or vice president. And all of these, you have mentors by those levels and different training. And every time you move up the organizational ladder, you're going to have a new experience that you've never had before. This is the definition of environmental factors in a leader's situation that lie outside of his competencies, characteristics, and experiences. So internal, environmental influences. For example, outdated technology. That's a skill level of employees that will continue to raise their competency. External, environmental influences, for example, economic, political, or social issues, natural disasters. So, does that environmental influences help your leadership? Yes. Think about it yourself. So in 9/11, did some of you, your job change? I know for me, it did immensely. I was the vice president of human resources at American during 9/11. And I can tell you that those environmental influences, that disaster, changed my leadership skills more than any other situation that had happened in my career. So think about those affecting your individual attributes, because I know that my motivation changed, my problem solving skills, the competencies changed, my knowledge changed, and my performance changed based on the environmental influences that had happened during 9/11. Okay, so we're going to talk about how does the skill approach work. First of all, the focus is primarily descriptive. It describes leadership from a skills perspective, rather than providing a prescription for success in leadership. The skills approach provides a structure for understanding the nature of effective leadership. And these on the right are the principal researchers. As I told you in the beginning, there's always research. It's been 100 years of research in leadership. And Katz suggested the importance of leadership skills, varied, depend on where the leaders reside in management and hierarchy. I think you can remember that was the kind of 9-box: technical skills, human skills, and conceptual skills. Mumford, Campion, and Morgeson, 2007, suggested higher levels of all skills are needed at higher levels of hierarchy. So they determined what the level was and which ones were necessary by level. And then Mumford, Zaccaro, and Harding in 2000 suggested leadership outcomes are a direct result of leaders' skilled competency in problem solving, social judgment, and knowledge. And so they developed what we call the skills model for leadership. So what's the strength of the skills theory? Well, the strengths are it was the first approach to conceptualize and create a structure of the process of leadership around leadership skills. It also described leadership in terms of skills and made leadership available to everybody, as opposed to you could only be a leader if you were born with certain traits. This hypothesized, hey, this is a structure that's available to everybody, that they can become leaders. It provided a expansive view of leadership that incorporated wide variety of components, problem solving, social skills, everything we've gone through. And it provided a structure consistent with leadership education programs. So we could teach problem solving skills, social judgment, knowledge. We could teach that in organizations. We could assess your general cognitive ability and crystallized cognitive ability and your motivation and your personality. So it gave us a structure as well as teaching you how to be effective problem solvers. The criticisms of the skills theory is that it was a breadth of skills appeared to extend beyond the boundaries of leadership, making it more general, less precise. So, for example, motivation and critical thinking, conflict resolutions, they address more than just leadership. So those skills are not only part of leadership, but they're part of other models that can be assessed. Weak in predictive value, so it does not explain how skills can lead to effective leadership performance. And skills model includes individual attributes that are trait-like. So some of those competencies could also be considered traits. Now, how do we apply the skills approach? Well, it provides a way to delineate the skills of a leader, and it is applicable to leaders at all levels within the organization, and you can see that in the book by its various models. And the skills inventory can provide insights into the individual's leadership competencies. At the end of every chapter, there is an assessment on each of them, the trait theory, the skills approach, there's a skills inventory. I really recommend that you do those. It'll give you more insight into yourself as a leader. And test scores allow leaders to learn about areas in which they may wish to seek further training. So those skills inventory will give a very good assessment. So I hope you have enjoyed this webcast. As always, please don't hesitate to contact me if you've got any questions. Thank you.